Everybody from New York, and thank you for joining us this evening. And I wanted to take some time to I wanted to find a track that I figured that would make sense with the current excitement with Glitterbox and all the disco stuff that's going on. And the administration said to me, can you dig in deep in your box and find us a disco track to work on? So I decided to pull my Chris Willis record out that I have done. That's actually out right now and it's streaming pretty well. We're about 250,000 streams. It's called Top of the World. It's Chris Willis and Lenny Fontana. But tonight, what I want to focus on is one question a lot of producers ask me around the world, and DJs. They always ask me when they start out, they say, how do you get that low end to sound so tight and push in the club? So I wanted to focus on tonight's lesson would be about the kick and the bass, okay? And those two things are the fundamental parts and when you produce a track, okay? Stuff like that. So what I'm gonna first do is I'm gonna play this track so you can hear what it sounds like. And then I'm gonna stop it and then we're gonna start to pick it apart. And then I'm gonna explain a little about compression. And one of the compressors that I use is from Waves. It's a plugin of a famous unit from DBX called the 160. Some of us know that's a VCA compressor and it's got a fast response. And this is the type of compression I use on the rhythm section, which would be your drums, kick, bass. But for now, let me play the track a little bit so you can hear what it sounds like. This is it. Let's check it out. Chris Willis, Top of the World. Here we go. Live bass, see right here, real string, you can tell it's disco. Today's disco sound. And we're going to start out, again, I'm going to roll it back to the top because I played to the first chorus. I'm going to roll it back to the top. And we're going to listen to the kick solo with the bass line so I can show you that it's actually flat with no EQ, no compression. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to roll it back. That's a live kick sound from a drum kit. Okay? And like all DAWs, I know you're probably saying, what DAW is this? This is Digital Performer. Pro Tools, Ableton, Logic, all work the same. Okay, so right now I'm on the mixing board. So when you're at a point when you produce a track and you're in mixing mode, this is where you would start. I start fundamentally at the kick and the bass because that's where I feel needs to be addressed first before we even getting into the cymbals and everything. But so for the amount of time we have, we're gonna work on the kick and the bass. See what I'm saying? The bass is, hear the bass, how it's live. See, a lot of you at home would ask a bass player to come in and play. So you have his natural bass sound, and then how do you make it sound rich and robust? We're going to show you some tricks, okay? So we'll start with the bass first. We'll leave that solo. I'm going to go to Waves, or whatever plugins, but I'm going to use a DBX 160 compressor. This is what a VCA compressor looks like, okay? And it has a fast response. The threshold rating, okay, would mean is if you're putting in 3 decibels of sound and you need to compress it down to 1.5, you would adjust it, okay? So, but some of you may not even know what I just said. You could do this. You can even cheat. You can say, well, I need some help. And a lot of them have presets. So you can actually take, for this matter, you can take a bass sound or bass drum, start from there. Also, remember, listen carefully. Always listen what you're doing, because you're gonna find your ears are not gonna lie to you. Okay, so let's roll that back in. Start from measure 17. So this way we can check it out. Here we go, the bass. So first we start on my chain line, I will have a compressor first. Then we'll add an EQ. But I'm gonna show you what a compressor really does. See what compression does, you wanna control it. So it means where the bottom, which would be your floor, and your ceiling, you may wanna be able to squash it so that it controls in the track so that you have a good solid volume, and that it keeps control of that bass so that it pushes the rhythm track. See, if you squash it, you can hear it's taking away the beauty of the bass. So you don't want to squash, what you want to do is control. Control. Here you go.
Hi Lenny, can I just ask, for
Yes.
for the beginners, those that are really starting out, how would they know what they really need to listen for?
Well, you can do it like this. When you're looking at a room, okay, or if you've ever been on a dance floor, people always say to me, the bass should hit you in your chest, but it shouldn't distort your ears. Does that make sense?
Uh-huh.
So that meaning that it should have not to be too low or too loud, and that the way the guy is playing it, so that you can hear each note clearly, or roughly most of the notes as he's hitting the bass guitar.
That's great, thank you.
You're welcome. You know, again, let me pause this for a second. A lot of this is, even for experienced engineers and mixing guys and producers, everything is trial and error. Sometimes we overdo things and we wind up a thing called recalling the mix because we destroyed the way it sounds, or because we're using too much of one thing. So the key with compression is to control the sound level. If it's too low and it's playing with peaks, meaning it's going boom, boom, ba-doop, boom, 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 you know, nice and low, you want to make everything one level. Now I'm going to bring the kick back up. For the time being, I'm going to take this bass, mute the bass. I'm going to work on the kick on as well. I'm going to bring up the same compressor again for the kick. So we get that kick. Watch how I make it robust. So I'm going to use the same compressor, a DBX 16 VCA. That you could find. You could find these plugins around. Some of them are on Waves, and some are sold. You can actually buy it separately. Okay, so if you don't know, you can use their guide. So since it's a bass drum, we'll try a bass drum. So I'm showing you from an easy perspective. See how I brought the tap out? Now I'm going to bypass it. Makes it sound muffled without it, and without it bypassed. And that's just from their compression set, and then you can adjust, and then you can even squash it where it sounds, starts to take the tap out of it. Some people like the tap sound for a kick.
What sound should they be aiming for a disco vocal house track?
I'm sorry, say the question. Let me stop for a second. Say it again.
What sound? Because the kick's very individual to the genre that you're producing, isn't it? So what sound should they
Okay,
be
for
aiming
disco,
for?
Disco would be a live drum kick, opposed to a house type genre would be more of the 909 kick or 808, which is from Roland.
Okay.
But that's what categorized under acoustic kick.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And this is an acoustic kick. If you look at a drum kit, you know, I know most people seen actual live drum kits. The bigger the bass drum, the more of a deeper sound you're gonna get. So in this case, I tend to find somebody's kit with a large bass drum. So now I'm trying to control this kick. We don't even have EQ on this yet. Bring up the bass too. Without it, now with both on compression. Now I know you can hear the difference, and that's the idea. The idea of what we're trying to do is to bring out that kick in the bass, so that when you play it on a big sound system, it'll rock the dance floor when that day comes. But you can tell, even your headphones, the difference. And this is just compression with no EQ. whole track, of course. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play it again. I'm gonna play it with it on, and then you're gonna see me bypass it. You can hear it. Listen carefully. Okay, now I'm gonna bypass it. See what happened? Lost all the energy and control. I'm gonna unbypass and react. Of course, I have it too loud, but for you to hear it at home, I have it brought up really out and forward. But you can tell when you don't have compression, it takes away the energy and the push that the low end is going to give you. This is how we mix in disco and dance music, that it's bass heavy, it's kick driven. That's what sets the tone on when you're producing these type of records. So now that we have that, what I want to do is I want to bring an EQ up to accentuate the compression on the kick. Okay? So let me see. We can pick. I got a ton of plugins. This is the problem. So it's trying to pick the right plugin that will work for a kick. So since we're doing disco, we'll use the Waves plugins, and I think we can do one with an SSL. SSL EQ. Oh, wrong one. Hang on. Let me get the SSLG. So it's 1 second. G channel.
Lenny, are there any go-to plugins that you'd recommend for people just starting out?
Sure. Plugin Alliance has a ton of plugins.
Yes. Yeah, I'll put that in the chat.
Waves. And you can buy them $29 or 15 pounds and pick up a couple of compressors, some EQs. They have, especially now with this pandemic, they're running all kinds of specials, believe me.
Yeah, sure.
So, back to the kick. Here we go. Oh, one thing. The good beauty of this, once again, say, oh man, I don't even know what I'm doing EQ-wise. These companies hired people like myself to go in and make preset positions that you can actually right away dial up. As you see, like I'm pulling up a kick drum, okay? And then also other engineers, as you see, are giving you their versions of how they EQ things, their standard type EQ. So we'll just take one for the kick drum, and then I'll adjust from there. Okay, so when I just went into it, it immediately brings the low frequency. You see this, the arrow? Between 50 and 100. That's where the kick lies. That's frequency hertz. That's the sub bass in the room that you're hearing that's pushing you on the dance floor. So we accentuate that in dance music, okay? So here we go. Let me play it again. Soloing the kick. That's the kick with the compression, no EQ from this SSL plugin. It's bypass. So let's unbypass it. And I'm going to sweep through the frequency so you can understand and hear what I'm doing at home. This black one here, that's 200 hertz. That's the low mid to low frequency from 30 to 450. This here is the actual amount of decibels. So for example, let me stop this. If you're going to set this frequency at say 60 or 80, I'm sorry. Let's say it's 60. Let's get it right there, which is pretty much a comfortable frequency I like working at in house music and disco. This here is a nominal 0, which means it's not going to add or subtract, okay? So once I start to dial it to right, you're going to add that 60 hertz EQ, and your volume decibel rate will change. You'll see what I mean in a second when I play it. Here we go. Right now it's 0, okay? As I move this to the right, it's gonna get deeper. You hear it? The same goes the other way. As I take it away, it's gonna get less and less. You're gonna hear more of the tap. And this is where you start to dial in to EQ with your compression, so that you want that robust low end is where you're going to actually work on right here, is in these black EQs or these frequency from 100 down to 30. It's very difficult to do a kick at this 30, so mostly it will be between 50 and 120 hertz is where you're going to hear that acoustic kick. So here we go again. Oh, and as you're EQing, the volume's getting louder. So you got to watch your LEDs so you don't start to use this horrible word, distortion. Nobody likes distortion because that will ruin your record, okay? Here we go again. I'm going to play the track, and I'm going to show you what this sounds like. And that's how you start to get that low end. Just like on your stereo where it says bass and you go to the right, this is exactly what I'm doing. And when you go to the left, it takes it away. That's it right there. That's your low frequency. So for me, this is where I like it. You know how it sounds? I'm going to bypass it. See, now it sounds very boxy without it. Without it. Now I'm back. I reactivated it. Say it again. And then I also like to add low mid frequency as well, so it gives it more of a push above that boom sound, a little bit above it. You'll see what I mean as I dial in. Remember that dB is decibel rates, so it's in plain English, so it's how loud and how much EQ in that frequency you're pushing that EQ, okay? Ooh, that's ugly, right? That's what we don't want. So we want to pull it back.
Lenny, we've got a few people on Facebook saying it's clipping slightly.
That's what I want. That's exactly right. That's what I was trying to explain. Thank you. So now I got to pull it back.
Cheers, Facebook.
Thank you. Remember we talked about that word distortion? That's that. Because EQ, when you EQ and you compress, it adds volume. And then you got to adjust as it's like a seesaw effect. A little bit much of this, you got to pull back a little bit of this. So let's check on the DAW. I got all these things open. Now let's add that bass again. Now, mind you, we have no EQ on the bass. We're still playing the bass flat with compression, but now we have EQ on the kick. But also, I'm noticing there's a little bit too much tap. So now I'm going to take that out in this high mid frequency area. I'm also going to add another SSL G channel to that bass. And we're going to adjust that bass too so that you can actually hear those strings along with that kick. And again, there's so many thousands of EQs. There's tube EQs. There's all kinds of EQs, but I'm just doing this as simple as I can keep it right now because I don't want to confuse all of you. There we go, SSL G channel through waves. Okay, so here is the bass stem. So make sure me untake that out, play the bass. Let's load up a bass EQ. Now, one thing about the bass, where the kick, we concentrating on the low frequency. We want to go in there and get the low mid frequency and bring that out and some of the high mid frequency of the strings, okay? Because in disco, you have a live bass sound and you want to hear those strings and the fingering. That's with it, and I'll bypass it. Now it sounds like the volume drop, which you're probably saying, well, the volume drop, but you're also hearing more of the fingering with the EQ. So when I unbypass it, reactivate it, you'll hear it clearer. And again, you gotta dial in and listen. You have to listen. See, now I made it sound hollow. I want it to be a bit more warmer sounding. And right there, I think we got it in a pretty good place. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna roll it back. I'm gonna play with the kick now. Now I'm going to unsolo the track and see how it sits with the rest of the other sounds.
All around me, happy people are here, all over the place. How can I hold on to what's got me down? 'Cause you take my...
So far, they're kicking the bass are too loud. So we have to adjust the volumes and do a little bit more tweaking. And this is where it takes time, but we're going to do that while the track is playing. I'll adjust the faders now. Still needs a little bit more kick. I'm saying with that compression and EQ, and you adjusting your faders, because it's all about what you're hearing on the mix down. Sometimes things have to be adjusted accordingly, even though you are doing them here. Okay, in the EQ section or the compression, you still got to go to the fader and adjust your volume levels. So let me play it again. See how I'm making the string louder? We can go to that in a second. I'm going to bring that up solo. Go to the guitar. Let me go to the guitar, because that falls with like the bass guitar. Now the guitar has an effect because it was recorded with a wah-wah pedal. And that's another sound that in 70s disco, the guitar was a Strat, like Nile Rodgers plays, Stratocaster, Fender Stratocaster. I'm sorry if I'm stopping because I'm hearing echo. Fender Stratocaster with a wah-wah pedal, okay? So here we go. Let's get the DBX 160 up for this. It's under waves. DBX 160S. Okay, and I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna do it again. Look for the guitar's preset, and then we'll adjust from there. Rhythm guitar, bingo. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna be good, but we'll check. Here we go. Let's see what starts. Back to the tracks. So that's it without the compression. See how important compression is? I'm gonna do some adjustment. It brings it out in the track, brings it more forward, and controls the vibe. Unbypassed to that rhythm guitar preset. Wow. And then you can squash it if you want. See with the threshold? Meaning, when I mean squash, if you're looking at your room, it's like your ceiling was dropping down on your head. Okay? And if I undo it, it's like the ceiling's going back up. So I'm doing is setting the room size, the height, and then the compression would be the floor level, so that it doesn't go higher than your ceiling and it doesn't play lower than where your floor is, okay? Also, you're gonna be situated where people send you samples and stuff. Like, you may have this guitar from somebody and you have to make it fit in the track. This is where you use your compression and your EQ. So right now we're starting again. Once again with the compression, I'm adjusting it accordingly. I'll play the bass guitar with you. I'm going to bring up an EQ. Here we go. Okay, so I want to bring out the middle section of that guitar, not too bright and not too dark. So we'll do that with this we'll do this with this EQ again. I'm going to flatten it down. Okay, this is flat. See where I said to you 0, and then we're going to adjust accordingly. So in guitar, there's really no low frequency and very little low mid. It's more mid high to high. And how you control it is basically how you adjust your kilohertz and then how much dB you want to give to bring out how bright you want it or how dark. So here we go. I'll start with darkening a little bit. See what I mean by darkening it? Sounds muffled. Let's brighten it again. Really brighten it. sounds tinny. That's not what you want, but maybe you may want that for an effect sound. But for all intents and purposes, that's too tinny. It sounds like a transistor radio. So let's take it back more to what this Fender Strat sound sounds like if Nile Rodgers was playing it. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention right here. These small little peaks. What happens when you EQ and say you were going to 1,500 hertz, okay? You would tell the EQ you want either dialed into that particular frequency, or the further wider you go, it'll take more the midsections, more like from 1,000 to 4,000. What does that mean? That's the frequency in the mid-range section, so that you'll be able to then control and give additional decibels. Again, back to that, making it louder or lower. Very simple terms. So I think about almost 1.5 in the kilohertz. And let's bring up some of that mid-range that guitar. And this will darken on the high frequency. Might take away. See, sounds like it's filtered. Bring in the kick. I'm pretty satisfied where it's hitting, but I gotta bring down the volume on the guitar. It's a little bit too loud. More gelling together, and you can actually distinguish the bass guitar and the rhythm guitar. Bass guitar being over here, and the rhythm guitar over here. Too loud still? Is it too loud, or should I bring it down more?
Yeah, we've got some of the guys saying it's too loud. I've got a question
Yes.
for you, Lenny. It's from Joe Thwaites. He says, these twiddly knobs look super fun, but how might this apply to Ableton stock EQ8?
Same.
You know, with
Because
the bell
go
curve,
ahead.
is the bell curve versus the shelf clipping versus whatever.
Each thing, low frequency, low mid frequency, they're all the same. They all have those different parameters. They look a little bit different, but they all have the frequencies. These are what they call shelving EQs. Shelving EQs. Okay? So once again, as you're doing this, you have to trust your ears. And if you're not sure, what a lot of us used to do when we were starting out, we would listen to other people's tracks and try to emulate what we were hearing was coming out. So for example, if I wanted something to sound like Earth, Wind, and Fire, I would listen to that track and then try to emulate my bass guitar or my rhythm guitar with an EQ and go A to B, what they did and what we're doing. Now, mind you, you're not going to get it exact, but that would be a good place to start, you know, as far as having a guide. Or if you're into a certain producer and you like people love Todd Terry and how he makes things sound very jumpy and swingy and bass heavy, what you can do is listen to some of his tracks and try to emulate and practice on your own stuff and compare it back and forth to see how close you're getting to what, say, he's doing, or Armand Van Helden, or myself. You know, that's how, because that's how we learn off each other. You know, we all listen and then try to figure out and emulate it and then apply it to our records.
Yeah, I think when people are starting out, to have a reference track is really important. But just like you said, to bear in mind that reference track has been mixed, it's been mastered, it's and you're working with raw sounds, so you never are going to quite get that exact same.
Never do.
That same sound, yeah.
But here's what's the cool part. A lot of times, if you read people's stories, they'll say, my heroes were Quincy Jones or this producer, right? And what they did was they dreamed and worked on their sound and trying to make it sound like sort of like Quincy does, but in the interim, they created a whole new sound. And I've seen that happen a lot too. Sometimes when you have that one track that's your muse, you pick it apart and you say, I want to make my track sound like that. But in the interim, you come up with something that's amazing. It happens. So don't stop dreaming at home. And don't be afraid to touch knobs or send guys like myself questions. Because a lot of times on Facebook, I'll get questions from producers and asking me about how you do this or how you do that. And I'll answer and I'll try to show it to you. But trial and error. Don't be afraid. You know, people are afraid to tell, oh, I'm going to mess this up. No, you won't mess it up. You won't mess it up. The only thing you could do is, if you don't try, then you don't know. Like anything in life. You know, I always tell everybody, give it a good shot. Try everything you got and see what comes out. I saw somebody mention a question about if I do my own mastering. Whole mastering is a whole different animal to mixing. A lot of times when I'm producing and writing a record, or say remixing something and we're doing all the work, I usually send it to a mastering engineer because they have a different set of ears coming into the project and they add a different and implement different techniques to your mix, taking it to another level. But I do know a lot of people mix and then master at home. If you do that, and others have told me the same, when you finish mixing, don't master right away. Step away for a few days and then ask yourself, let's try some mastering techniques. There's ozone mastering. There's all kinds of mastering plugins you can use. But again, that's a whole different session than just what I'm showing today. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, we'll come back to some questions. Yeah, we've just got a little bit of feedback there, but yeah, we can keep going for a little while longer and we'll pick some more questions up, Lenny.
Okay. So far we got the volume okay? Is this okay? We're not clipping, right? Again, one thing I want to do, I want to apologize to everybody. We're all starting at home doing these webinars. So we're working through some of the kinks. Bear with us. I know you're probably pulling out your whips and want to beat me. I'm trying to work through some issues here on my side, so please be kind. Here we go. congas. Those are like congas. Let's get that DBX compressor. Again, I've been using all sorts of different compressors, but to make it simple, I'm using the same one because it's got a fast attack. And what I want to do is here is adjust that threshold, tighten it up, get that volume right. Also, I want to get that EQ back out because I want to be able to hear the hands slapping the heads of the congas. Go back. We use the same SSL EQ. See how we dial right in? We can either muffle them like a filter or bring them out. Again, I want to get that slap, and that's in the high mid-frequency area. And again, you don't have to know the kilohertz or any of this stuff. You could just start taking an EQ and moving these dBs and these kilohertz. You may say, what the hell is he talking about? But you'll see what I mean. Even Ableton or Logic, I know Logic has a basic EQ. Just go in there and start moving stuff around and see how it sounds. The thing is, I know right away what I want to hear because I did 1,000 records. So after a while, you kind of know right away what you're going to dial into. But that comes with time. People say, how do you know? Like building a house or cooking. You know what needs, for example, if it's a steak you're having or vegetable and it doesn't have any taste, first thing is you put salt. Same thing. EQ is like salt and pepper. Compression is like, again, it's how cooked is it, you know? Here we go. I want to hear those slapping on the top of the conga head. I think it's pretty good. Here we go. Yeah, you get the conga clear. Nothing is fighting. That's the trick with this thing. The perfection EQ. Nothing to be fighting with each other. It's coming through clear.
struggling to hear you a little bit.
Sorry?
We're just struggling to hear you a little bit.
I'm sorry. Let's get those horns I was saying. Sorry, excuse me.
No worries, thank you.
Getting all excited. Again, real simple. We're going back to the VCA compressor on the horns. So we'll listen to the horns. I'm going to adjust them. Play. Again, that's the ceiling of how much I'm going to squash them or how much I'm going to release them. Play it again. I think we got them in place. Let's get an EQ so we can bring them and make them a little bit brighter.
Yeah, that's great. We've got quite a few questions coming in as well, Lenny.
Oh my God.
MOTU Baron's live.
Hurry up, get those questions.
MOTU Baron, are you there?
I'm here. Oh.
We're just going to try and bring some of the guys in live to talk to you, Lenny.
Okay.
Get it a bit interactive. Right, MOTU Baron, let's bring panelists. There we go.
Welcome, Matthew. Are you doing that? Let me pull out the horn EQ.
Matthews is a sound engineer. Where's your
Okay.
sound?
Is Matthew on?
No mic on his PC.
Oh, he's got no
Okay.
mic on his PC.
Okay, just asking his question. Helen is in the chat.
Okay, yeah. Would you send your kick and bass to a bus and glue them a bit more? And
Sure.
If yes, could you show us how?
You can. It's funny because what I would do is actually run these through the console and glue them on an external VCA compressor, but we're going to do it inside. So I make an aux track. Okay, so you create an aux track, all right, and these are going to be sent to a bus. So I'm going to say it's a bus 1, 2. So then we can go with a different compressor. You can even go with a mastering compressor. Start again. kick. You got to take the volume back. You know, when we have clipping, but that's how you would glue them. You would set up to aux track, and then set up a master compressor or another VCA compressor. I mean, there's all different ways of doing it. This is the quickest way I could do it in the time we're allotted. So I would use, say, something like this: a Shadows Hills mastery compressor, or a VCA compressor, or a tube compressor, and send the kick and the bass so it glues better with using one compressor and additional EQ if you want. I hope that answers. I mean, that's one way. There's so many different ways of doing it, but that's why I would think the quickest way I would do it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Hope that answers.
Yeah, another question from Egidius. What kind of compressors would be similar to the DX160? Do you know?
Okay. There's also an LA3, an 1176 from Yuri. Those
Okay.
two everyone uses. I think those two off the top of my head, Yuri 1176 and LA3 or LA2 would be the ones that are similar to the DBX 160.
Great stuff, thank you. One from Richard Jones. Do you have a preference on EQ before compression or vice versa?
Depends on the sound. Like for example, with a horn, saxophone, I've done things where we EQ'd first and then compressed it with a limiter to control its volume to come out, say, in a solo lead. It all depends what sound you're dealing with and what your application. So once again, I've also screwed things up doing it that way. So you need to trust your ears when you do these things, because everyone says, oh, the rule of thumb is to take away, not to add. In other words, subtractive EQ and subtractive compression is the way you're supposed to go before you start adding. But since I'm a demon and I love low end, I go right in there and I do addition, as I showed you, in decibels. Going to the right, just like on your stereo. More bass or left to the left. No bass.
Great stuff. I think that answers Joe's question as well. He said, I see some people are taking out all the low and or high on certain instruments. Others seem to add very little EQ. What's your take on it? Or is it track by track? I think that covers.
Track by track.
Yeah.
You have to listen. Solo, listen to it, see what it sounds like by itself, EQ it, then EQ it, adjustment in the track as you in your mix.
I think a great tip as well is to listen to things very quietly, isn't it? If you listen to things quietly, if anything's standing out in particular, you know that needs a little bit of tweaking.
100%, because the volume level when everything is low is sitting, it's supposed to sit exactly across, meaning the low end shouldn't be louder or the top end shouldn't be louder when it's real low. Everything should hit you at one volume, 1 decibel.
Yeah, and we just get tempted to whack the volume up, like you
Oh
said,
yeah,
you
because
get
we're
carried away.
DJs.
It's very tempting.
You know, you guys in England made me laugh with this. You used to have this movie where you said, 11, mate.
Yes,
bigger
turn it
than
up to
10.
11. Spinal
Yep.
Tap.
So
Spinal
bring
Tap.
it. I have that on my console, the Spinal Tap mod. It's 11. My console goes to 11. It really does.
Most of the people in our group will have never heard of Spinal Tap.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, let's have a look what else we've got. Just checking through here. Do you automate EQ for musical effect? That's from
Sure you do.
Fraser. Yeah.
Sure you do. And you also do it with filters. In disco filtered house, we used to do that all the time to muffle things and then to make it open up so it gets nice and bright. So you do that too. Sure.
Great stuff, thanks. How do you know where to distribute your music? Oh, sorry, why did you choose Oh, sorry. Why did you choose DAW to distribute your music? Sorry, I misread that. That's from Sam Randall. Sorry, Sam.
Wait, say one more time.
Why did you choose DAW to distribute your music? Is that supposed to be DAW? I'm not sure. It's in the
What?
Q&A. If you can see the Q&A
Oh,
box.
let me see. I got it right here. Hang on.
Yeah,
Chat.
it's the bottom. It's the bottom one. Sam, if you're there, maybe you can jump on and we can. You can ask yourself.
I see people talking out.
Yeah, no
A
worries.
question.
We'll come back to it. We'll try and get Sam to clarify that. One from.
Sam, are you there?
There you go.
We're here.
It's Harry Towers.
Hi, how are
Can
you,
you hear
sir?
me?
Good.
Yeah, not too bad, mate. How are you?
Good, thank you.
I've reviewed quite a few of your tracks, mate, in the past.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Thanks.
And I know on the Zip DJ, I know that quite a few of your tracks was basically disputed by Dieter, known as Harry Towers, because I've known him
Oh,
for
yes.
quite a while.
He did the promotion. Yep. Yep.
I'm just basically saying, how did he sort of like get involved with your distribution with records and things like that?
Harry did some promotion for us. He wasn't really our distributor. He ran a promo company at the time, and he asked me to do some promotion and work our records around to all the DJs. I said, sure. So we gave him a couple of titles to work on. He's a nice guy.
He's awesome, because I've known him a very, very long time.
Yeah, he's been around a long time. I know him from ZYX Records. Yep.
Yes, he's still going. I'm still getting his promo and stuff like that.
Yep.
Even now. And some of the stuff that you produce has been really amazing.
Thanks, brother. Listen, I'm not the best and I'm not the worst. And I never sat here to say I am the iconic DJ producer that knows everything. One thing I do know is I specialize in dance music, and I put all my heart and time into it, and I've studied it my whole life, from the days of Larry Levan to today. So I just tried to re-emulate what I grew up listening to, and I'm also trying to push the threshold.
No, it's awesome what you're doing. I've always sort of like really enjoyed sort of like the soulful stuff that you've done.
Thanks.
You know.
Thanks. I've also been lucky to work in some great artists over the years too, and they've made it that much more pleasurable. Who's next on the line?
Who's next on the line? A couple more questions from the group. A question more out of interest, but when you were putting out things on Strictly Rhythm, Soulshine, did you work through the bass kick drums the same way as you've just explained it? Or what did your workflow look like back then? That's from Imad.
In those days, I still have an analog console. So people understand, you can look this up. I have an SSL 6048 EG+. In those days, in my home studio, I used to have an AMEC console, and we were using outside compressors, and we were running everything through the console from a tape machine. So my workflow would not be virtual. It would actually be where I was touching knobs and adjusting compressors. Right, what you're seeing when I'm bringing up, I would actually have them for real in the racks. So we used to say back then in the 90s, in the golden era of house music, God, imagine if you could have all these things in the computer. Well, now we do. Now the thing is, because I know how those boxes work, I can go and work them virtually. The question I always get, does the real ones sound like the virtual ones? I'll tell you what, sometimes they're pretty damn close. And being that you're putting fresh new music through, there's no way to compare what the old ones sound like with the new ones unless you have a box here that you can emulate. So my workflow would have been a lot longer in those days, much longer. It took a lot longer to get records done. But still, even today, when I'm writing with artists, it's still, if you want to get something to be really sounding right and hone it, it takes time. And anyone that tells you that you're doing these big productions from start to finish within a day, I don't believe it. As I've had this conversation with many DJ producers, and you hear them saying, even Musti, all of them say the same thing. You go in, they leave it, they tweak it, they walk away. And this is over days, over weeks, sometimes to get a record to sound amazing. So don't lose hope on how long it takes. It's what the end result is going to be when you're done. And hopefully someone like Defected or one of the big labels will take your record and launch your career. And it happens. Or someone like myself will sign you to my record label, and then another record label producer hears you and they want to work with you, or the record gets licensed and becomes a hit. And then all of a sudden you become the next go-to. Happens all the time.
We do run remix competitions in Mixmasters membership. So if you're interested in putting together any sort of remix comp, Lenny, that'd be brilliant. And
I do. I get tons of big material. I would love to. Sure.
All right, wicked. Let's talk after this and we'll put something together, yeah?
But again, you guys may say, Lenny's out of his mind doing it this way. This is just one way I do it. There's so many different techniques I use. There's not enough time to even show you everything. I'm just trying to show you a basic. Some people may say, it's rubbish what he's doing. Sure. But at the end, when you hear the final project and the mix sounds right, then you did it the right way. There is no formula. There's basics, and then you take those basics and roll them into your toolkit, and you become the engineer producer that you need to be, like I did. Some people showed me, hey, do it like this, like do it like this. And then I took their ideas, implemented them with mine, talked to more people. Nowadays, which we didn't have back then, we didn't have YouTube, and we had no way of seeing other people showing us ideas. It's crazy. Back then, we were just learning as we went along, trial and error. So don't be afraid to mess up. It's okay.
Okay, one last question, I think, so far. Yeah, if you've got any questions for Lenny before we wrap it up, then fire them over. So one from Mark van der Heuvel. Sorry, Mark. What about leveling between kick and bass and the other channels? Have you got any tips?
Listen on your headphones. Also have a good pair of mixing monitors, okay? If you have a car stereo, run in, take the mix on a wave or an MP3, go listen to it, because different speakers, different headphones, all show you the mix, or should I say, all sound different. So once you get the mix right, it should sit correctly in everywhere you play it. Not sound great in my car and then sound terrible on my reference monitors in the studio. You know what I'm saying? And your pre-master, before you send it out for mastering or master, make sure you work out all your problems. If there's problems with the tracks, fix them. Fix everything, because you don't want to spend money and time or waste somebody else's time that you're sending to get it mastered, or if you're getting somebody else to work on it so that things are right. So that means if you have to work on the track a little bit, then take a step back in, do it that way. Don't be rushing just to get a record out, because that's another thing. There's so much material that's mundane now and kind of average. If you want to stand out, spend the extra time. Collaborate with other people that can help you later on when we get past this little problem with dealing with being all home. When we can all get back together in the studio with other keyboard players and stuff. That'll help you broaden your horizons, having musicians, having a keyboard player come in, help you, show you how they structure chords. Or you could show them an idea from a record and say, I'd love to have this. I don't really know what this sound is. Can you tell me what this is? For example, If you hear a keyboard sound, he may say that's a Rhodes. Okay, so then you go on Ableton, you go and pull up a Rhodes sound, and and other musicians will share that with you. But that all comes on the journey as you're doing this.
Okay, thanks, Lenny. We've got a little bit more time if there was anything else you wanted to show us, or if anybody else wants to get some questions in, just
Make
let
sure
us know.
Did we catch everybody's questions?
Yeah, we've caught up so far. So if you just wanted to do a little bit more on that horn section.
Yep. So right here, I had this Shadows Hill mastering compressor, and the gentleman who asked me about gluing that kick in the bass. So we have that right here. Let me play it again. Oh, another thing, a lot of mastering people, engineers, I should say, they'll say to you, I'll mix your stuff, your stems. What does that mean? Meaning that you'll send 6, 7, or 8 stems, like what I have here, these stems, kick stem, bass stem, strings, and have them do the final mixes. What we're trying to show you here is to get your mixes the way you vision them. At first, when you get them out, they may not be right, but let your friends critique you. It's okay. Because that's how, quick one. When I started DJing, or making records for that matter, my first record sounded horrible. But my friends loved them to bits. They said to me, yo, this is incredible. Until I went to a record label and played it. And this guy said to me, what the hell is this crap? So talk about, you got to have thick skin. But anyway, so mastering engineer would say to you, you know, send me your stems. And what that means is he would ask you to send your kick, your bass, your strings, or whatever your stems are, the keyboards you're using, probably with the effects, but each one's separate. So what I'm doing here is showing you how to mix. He would take them and do the final mixing for you. Okay, so we'll go to the horns, which is super cool. Find the section where here it is again. Here we go. What I was saying was I wanted to make them a bit more brighter, but not screeching, okay? One more time, here we go. You have a sound more, what's the word? Royal, like we're in Royal Albert Hall. You know, if I want to vision, I want to hear them in Carnegie Hall or Royal Albert Hall, this is how I want them to sound. That question before, if it's too loud, should you be able to adjust it in the mix? Yes. To that woman who asked the question, here it is. The horns are now way too loud, and we got to bring them back in the mix. So bring them down. Question came in, would you ever sign chain any of your instruments so they duck the kick? Sure. That's a whole other lesson. That's a whole nother lesson of compression, yes. And you would side chain off the kick, for sure. This kick would send the signal to each side chain compressor so that it would duck, yes. 100%. I've done it many times in EDM music. For sure, I know it's used when you get that sound where you get that bump sound in the mid-range. Yes. So back to the horns. I like that Carnegie Hall, Royal Albert Hall sound. Here we go.
Sometimes I get so lost in my head,
Chris Willis on the vocal.
and I can't see clearly. I hear your voice telling me we'll
back
find
to
a
that.
way to work it out. Just keep on believing. How can I hold on to what's got me down? 'Cause you take my darkest days and lead me to the light on the other side. Just one look into your eyes, then I know the reasons why. This feeling better on top of the world. This feeling better on top of the world. This feeling better on top of the world. Whenever you're near me, this feeling better on top of the world. This feeling better on top of the world. This feeling better on top of the world. Whenever you're near me, every day there's a side of you I've never seen before.
Background.
How can I hold on to what's got me down? You take my darkest days and lead me to the light on the other side. Hey, oh, and I know the reasons why. This feeling better on top of the world. Got this feeling better on top of the world. Got this feeling better on top of the world. Whenever you're near me, this feeling better on top of the world.
Rhodes. Fender Rhodes. Let's quickly get a pressure on that. We got to work on that. That thing should be coming through. So again, to make it simple, we'll use the same stuff. Here we go. DBX. You guys go out buy a DBX. It's good for everything. It's a well-rounded compressor. You can get this. And if you're not sure, we'll put it up DBX 160S. Here we go. EQ on it. I get the SSL EQ. Sorry if I'm slurring, I'm hearing that delay. Try it again. Like I said, you can dial it up, and most of the DAWs and plugins have presets that you can use that quickly get you there, and then you can adjust from there. I would be doing this from scratch, but since we're doing a webinar, I have to be a little quicker. So get what you need to hear so you can hear the difference. Hear it now in the track. So I can move this, move that out of the way. Solo.
Get so lost.
Now the Rhodes is too loud, so we gotta lower. We gotta bring it back in the mix.
Sometimes I get so lost in my head, and I can't see clearly. I hear your voice telling me we'll find a way to work it out. Just keep on believing. How can I hold on to what's got me down? 'Cause you take my darkest days and lead me to the light on the other side. Just one look into your eyes, then I know the reasons why. Just feeling bad on top of the world. Just feeling bad on top of the world. Just feeling bad on top of the world. Whenever you need a man, just feeling bad on top of the world. Just feeling bad on top of the world. Just feeling bad on top of the world. Whenever you need a man, every day there's a side of you I've never seen before. Breaking open my heart when my world falls apart. Find a miracle. How can I hold on to what's got me down? You take my darkest days and lead me to the light on the other side.
I got a big question that came in. Someone just asked, did I ever do everything inside the DAW without using a real analog console? Shirley Lights, Fire, I mix all in the DAW without using the SSL mixing desk. Yes, it can be done, and I did that for a reason, but it took me a little bit more work and time because to get the low end to match that I'm used to on the mixing desk took some more plugins and more time. So there's your answer to Mr. Graham Knox Frazier. Great question.
Yeah, that's a really good question because we get a lot of people in the group asking, especially when they're beginning, when they're starting out, what hardware should I be buying? And my opinion is just learn your DAW, learn what tools that's got before you start committing to spending
Oof.
money.
Step one, learn how to sequence with your DAW and mix with your DAW. When you understand those principles, then you can step out and start getting external pieces. But first, You got a lot of work in front of you, and don't be afraid. And don't be afraid to mess up. Send it to producer. You may not hear anything, or DJs, but you will. Keep knocking politely, always politely. Say please and thank you. I check, listen, for current Power Records, how many demos I get from new producers, they send it to us, I check everything. Believe me, I check everything because I found new producers amongst all of you and launched careers over the years. So I understand. Don't be afraid. Send me those demos.
I'm sure they will. And we've just got one from Stanley Hood. We think you covered it really earlier on about parallel compression on bass. Would you recommend it?
I did write to him. I said to him,
Oh,
yes.
sorry. Okay.
No, I did. I said, yes, I can. You can do it. Again, I don't like to use too much compression, but parallel compression will help with controlling the overall sound of the bass. So you have one compressor doing one part of the compression and the other one doing the other. Yes, I've done both. I've done both. I've done single. I've done ducking. I've done side chaining. Yes, and then sometimes you hear it back and you say, no, it doesn't work. Go back to the bass sound and redo it again and see what works. Because you basically what you want to do is control the sound, not destroy it. Not destroy the sound.
Okay.
So that's my answer on that one.
Great stuff. Is there anything else that you want to show us for this session, Lenny?
Do I add tremolo to the Rhodes? 100%. I've also added a phaser, reverbs. This because people, I saw Mr. Frazier asking me if I add tremolo. Yes, I do. How do you usually go by swinging? Okay, Richard Jones, how do you usually go about applying swing in your tracks? Okay. In the quantized mode, I can't do it right now because I don't have MIDI information up, but you would go here, say to quantize, okay? This is where you have to understand signature, meaning whole note, half note, quarter note, eighth note, 16th note. So you have to know some basic musical composition, okay? So what I do is, say I'm doing dance music, most of it is set to quantizing to a 16 note. What we'll do is we'll swing it by percentage. The more swing, the higher the percentage. The less swing, the lower the percentage. I hope that helps. But I'd have to show another lesson on us doing what we call tracking and show you how I quantize and how I don't quantize things and how you fix things. I hope that answers your question, Mr. Jones. And that's on that one.
That's great. Thank you.
You got a good bunch of people tonight. They know stuff. I love it. Keeping me on my toes. I'm questioning myself saying, do I really know what I'm doing? Sometimes you question, you know?
We've had lots of really good feedback saying this is one of the best production workshops we've ever put together, and I probably agree.
Mr. Savage, we
yeah.
started out terrible. Remember? Tell them.
Oh mate, you don't even need to know that.
We're joking.
No, but the yeah, my heart can't take much more of this sort of stuff. But the wait was worthwhile. But
sorry,
yeah,
we were late, but better late than never.
Yes, it's the quality, not the quantity. Yeah.
That's what I like. Any other questions from the group? Yes, it was wicked. Thanks thank you, Matthew. Thank you everyone that tuned in. Let me say this to you, okay? The most important part of this journey. Many times I have completely did a track, okay? Produced it. Got to the point we put the vocals down. Thought it was great. 2-3 days later, said, oh my God, this is horrible. and destroyed the track. So I'll leave you like this. Sometimes when you're learning, it's okay to make mistakes. And sometimes when you're feeling something and nobody else believes in you, see it through. Because that could be the big hit record, for example, like an alternate tape, Free. And I know the story. Someday I'll tell you that. So that's it for me. Practice and enjoy.